Greetings my dear chess friends, I welcome you to this chess video, and before we begin I would like to ask you quite a profound question. What is the underlying principle which governs all chess games? I wonder if you can answer that. Well, hopefully by the end of this video you will be able to answer this question, but in the meantime I'll let you philosophize over it. I repeat it again, what is the underlying principle which governs all chess games? Now in this particular video we are concerned with chess opening principles. And it's primarily geared towards beginners, but saying that, the principles are equally applicable if you are an intermediate or an advanced player, because they apply just the same. Now, I looked at a number of videos on YouTube dealing with this subject prior to making this video, and they all advocated things like controlling the centre or putting a piece or a pawn in the centre, etc., which are all good and valid goals. But I would like to provide a practical approach by providing the student with 3 goals to achieve in the opening phase of a chess game. Number 1, the development of your chess pieces. Number 2, to connect your rooks. And this means posting your queen somewhere. And number 3, making castling. And in order to help you with these goals, I'd like to provide 3 principles. The principle number 1 is the preparation for development, in that we only make pawn moves if it helps us develop our pieces. Number 2 is the principle of the least active piece. We develop the least active piece first because it instantly increases our activity. And number 3, we develop towards the centre and on squares of maximum activity. So these are 3 principles and we have 3 goals. We develop our pieces, we connect our rooks, we make castling, and to help us, our principles, we only make pawn moves if it helps us develop. We develop the least active piece, and we develop towards the centre and on squares of maximum activity. So let's take a look at these goals and principles in practice. Now we play e4. Why? Well, simply because it provides maximum activity. The bishop and the queen are now active. Yes, it controls the centre, but this is simply a manifestation of activity, because the reason why we control the centre is because it provides us more activity. Now, for the sake of this video, we'll say that black plays c5, Sicilian defence. We look at our position and we think, how can I increase my activity? And one of the ways we do this is by developing the piece that is least active. Now, in practical terms, the pieces that are least active are the knights. The bishop and the queen are already active, and we can play knight to f3, developing towards the centre, developing the least active piece, instantly increasing our activity. Our opponent plays d6, which is a common move, very flexible choice in the Sicilian defence. And here we play the move d4. Now take a look at this move, chess friends. It's a pawn move, but it helps us develop our pieces. The dark squared bishop is now free to develop. And this is generally the only reason why we make pawn moves in the opening phase of a chess game, is if it helps us develop our pieces. Black takes. And we have a choice. We can take back with the queen, or we can take back with the knight. Now, which one of these moves would you advocate? Well, it's generally held that it's better to take back with the knight, because it's important to keep the queen safe. She is a great attacker, but without the support of her friends, she is very vulnerable. And there are so many minor pieces on the board that if she comes out too quickly, she can become an object of attack. So we keep her at home just at the moment. Now look at this move, knight takes d4. It restores material equality and it makes the knight more active. It's now on a more active square. So it's a great move. Knight to f6, and consider the position for a moment. You need to defend the e-pawn, and there are 4 ways that you can do it. You can play f3, defending it with a pawn. You can play bishop to d3, defending it with the bishop. You can play queen to d3, defending it with the queen. Or you can play knight to c3, defending it with the knight. Now, which one of these do you think is best and helps us achieve the goals that we set out at the start? Well, the move f3 is a pawn move, but it does not help us develop any of our pieces. In fact, we can see that it blocks the queen's diagonal, so it's no good. What about bishop to d3? It's a developing move, it prepares castling, but it violates the principle of the least active piece, because this bishop was already active along this diagonal. What about the queen? Well, again, it violates the principle of the least active piece, because the queen is already active, and it's better to keep the queen safe. And that leaves us with knight to c3. It develops a piece, it develops the least active piece, it develops it towards the centre on the square of maximum activity, and it defends the pawn. So this is the best choice for us. Knight to c3. We'll say for the sake of this video that black plays a6, going into what is termed the Najdorf Sicilian. Now we are burdened with the task of thinking what to do about our bishops. And this is where another principle helps us, the principle of maximum activity, in that we want to put our pieces on squares where they exert the greatest influence. Now look at this light square bishop here. Which square can we put it on which yields the greatest influence? Well, you could try, for example, e2, but this does nothing to control the centre. We could put it on, for example, d3, but again this violates the principle of maximum activity, because the bishop is blocked in by its own pawns. And that simply leaves the square c4. We've developed a piece, we have prepared castling, we have put a piece in the centre where it has some influence in the centre, and we have put it on a square of maximum activity. So in this position, the best square for this bishop is c4. What about our dark square bishop? Again, on d2, it's hardly the most active square. And in fact, it blocks the queen's activity. On e3, it is much more active. It is not blocked in by its own pawns, and it's having some influence over the d4 square. Naturally, f4 is out of the question because of this pawn fork here. And the other square is g5. So we have essentially two choices. We can play bishop to e3 or bishop to g5. In this instance, we'll say, just for the sake of the video, that it's bishop to e3. Black plays e5 as in the Najdorf, and we move our knight back. Bishop to e7 and bishop to c4, putting our bishop on a square of maximum activity in the centre, helping us complete the goals that we stated at the outset. We are now free to castle. Black plays bishop to e6, and here is an interesting moment. These two bishops have come into contact with each other, and how should we meet the demands of the position? Well, it's important to remember that when we take an opponent's piece like this, we in fact increase his activity because he's able to take with the f pawn. If we castle, he castles, and he has this half open file for his rook. He has greater control of the centre, and we have done this essentially with our own move. We have increased his activity. So it's important to keep the tension here. And we can either do it by bringing the bishop back to b3, or we can defend it with a move like queen to e2. Black castles, and we have castled, connecting our rooks, and we have completed we have absolutely completed the goals that we outset in the opening. We have developed our pieces, we have connected our rooks, and we have castled. And we're now in a position to begin an attack. The principles which helped us was the principle of the preparation for development, in that we only develop, or we only move pawns if it helps us develop. We have used the principle of the least active piece, bringing those pieces which were least active into the game, instantly increasing our activity. We have developed towards the centre and on squares of maximum activity. And we're good to go. So hopefully, dear chess friends, this was of some benefit to you when you are thinking of making the moves in an opening phase of a chess game. Now to the question that we posed at the outset. I wonder if you have any idea what it is. What is the underlying feature or principle which governs all chess games? And the answer is simply activity. We develop because it increases our activity. We put pawns in the centre, controlling the centre, because it increases our activity. We put our pieces on the squares of maximum activity, because activity is the underlying principle which governs all games of chess. And if you can remember these simple goals and these simple principles and this underlying principle, which all others are simply manifestations of, then, dear friends, you'll have a good game, and I sincerely wish you well with your own chess. So take care, and thanks for watching this little video.